I know what you're thinking. 7 years, normal salary. This guy is about to tell me to stop buying coffee. The coffee is not the problem. Here is what this video actually is. It is math. The real math. The kind that personal finance YouTube usually buries under 40 minutes of vague motivation and sponsored apps you will never use. There is a lot of financial advice out there, an overwhelming amount, and most of it is either too simple to be useful or too complicated to be actionable. Skip the latte. Invest in real estate. Diversify your portfolio. Start a side hustle. Work with a financial advisor. Open a Roth. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You do not need all of that. You need the core mechanics, what actually moves the needle, what the data actually says. First, let's be clear about what we are talking about, because retire in 7 years sounds like a clickbait promise, and I want you to understand what the actual version of this looks like before you start moving money around. Retiring in this context does not necessarily mean you stop working forever at 34. It means reaching financial independence, which means your investments generate enough passive income to cover your living expenses without you needing a job to survive. You can still work after that. Plenty of people do, but you work because you want to, not because your landlord is a deadline. The framework behind this is called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. It has been around since the 90s, and the math has been validated by decades of market data. The two core rules are: Rule 1. Your FIRE number is 25 times your annual expenses. If you spend $40,000 a year to live, you need $1 million saved and invested. If you spend $50,000, you need $1.25 million. Rule 2. Once you hit that number, you withdraw 4% per year to live on. This is called the 4% rule, and it comes from a 1994 study by financial planner William Bengen, who analyzed historical market data going back to 1926. He found that a portfolio invested in a mix of stocks and bonds could sustain a 4% annual withdrawal indefinitely without running out of money. It has held up through every market downturn since. So you need 25 times your spending. You invest it. You take out 4% a year. That is the engine. Now, the 7 years part. That's another game. This is the most important thing in this video, so pay attention. Your savings rate is the percentage of your take-home income you save and invest every month. And it is the single most powerful lever in this entire equation. Not your income, your savings rate. If you save 10% of your income, the standard advice, you will retire in roughly 51 years. Save 25% and that drops to about 32 years. Save 50% and you get there in 17 years. Save 75% of your income and you retire in approximately 7 years. That is where the 7 years comes from. A 75% savings rate. Now, before you close the tab, hear me out, because this is where most people stop and say that is impossible on a normal salary. And I want to push back on that. The math does not care about your income as much as you think it does. Someone earning $80,000 who saves 75% is living on $20,000 a year. Still lean, but it is doable in plenty of parts of this country, especially with a partner or roommate splitting the fixed costs. The point is not that you must hit 75% immediately. The point is that every percentage point of savings rate you add dramatically accelerates the timeline. Going from 10% to 20% saves you 19 years. Going from 20% to 30% saves you another 8 years. The early gains are enormous. And here's the part that makes it even more interesting. A higher savings rate does two things at the same time. It builds your investment portfolio faster, obviously, but it also proves that you can live on less, which lowers your FIRE number. Both sides of the equation move in your favor simultaneously. That double effect is why the savings rate is the variable that matters more than your salary. But there's a big question we haven't answered yet. Where should you put your money? So you want to save aggressively. Where do you put it? Step 1. Get the free money first. If your employer offers a 401k match, that is a 50% to 100% instant return on your contribution, depending on the terms. It is genuinely the highest guaranteed return available to you in any legal financial instrument. If your employer matches 100% up to 6% of your salary and you are not contributing at least 6%, you are leaving money on the table. Not metaphorically, literally. Free money that your employer is trying to give you and you are declining. In 2026, you can contribute up to $24,500 to a 401k. Max the match first, always. Step 2. Roth IRA. In 2026, you can contribute up to $7,500 per year. You put in after-tax money, it grows completely tax-free, and you pay zero taxes on withdrawals in retirement. Zero. The government gets nothing. The S&P 500, which is just the 500 largest US companies, has returned an average of about 10% per year historically before inflation, or roughly 7% after inflation. If you invest $7,500 a year into a Roth IRA from age 28 to age 35, just those 7 years of contributions, and then you stop and never touch it, that money grows to over $1 million by traditional retirement age at 7% real returns. You contributed $52,500. The market did the rest. Step 3. Index funds. This one is simple. Do not try to pick stocks. Do not try to time the market. Both of those activities consistently underperform a basic low-cost index fund over any 10-year period. An index fund just buys every stock in an index, like the S&P 500, which means you own a tiny piece of the 500 biggest companies in America. Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab all offer index funds with expense ratios close to zero. VTSAX, FXAIX, SWTSX. You do not need to know anything about individual stocks. You just need to buy the whole market and let time do the work. Step 4. Taxable brokerage account for anything above the tax-advantaged limits. If you are saving aggressively and you hit the 401k and Roth IRA contribution limits, a regular brokerage account is where you keep going. Let's be honest about what actually makes this hard, because the math is clean, but the execution is not. Housing is the biggest cost to attack. Housing typically eats 30% to 40% of most people's take-home income. If you can reduce that number significantly, everything else gets easier. House hacking is one of the most documented ways to do this. Buy a small multi-unit property, live in one unit, rent out the others. The rental income covers most or all of your mortgage. Your effective housing cost drops dramatically. A $500 reduction in monthly rent is $6,000 a year you can redirect to investments. Over 7 years at 7% returns, the $6,000 a year becomes around $55,000. Housing is the variable that moves the most. Income is a lever too. A job change that raises your salary by $15,000 while you keep your expenses the same immediately raises your savings rate by a significant amount. If you are already living on $25,000 and you start earning $70,000, you can save $45,000 a year without changing anything about your life. That is a savings rate above 60%. The average millennial has about $67,000 in their 401k. The median is much lower. The average savings rate in the US is somewhere around 4 to 5%. Most people are pointed directly at working until their mid-60s and hoping Social Security is still around. A note on healthcare before traditional Medicare age. If you stop working before 65, you lose employer-sponsored healthcare. On the ACA marketplace, a plan for a 40-year-old can run $400 to $700 a month, depending on coverage and your income. At lower income levels in early retirement, you may qualify for significant subsidies that dramatically reduce this cost. Build it into your FIRE number. Do not skip this part. Healthcare is where a lot of early retirement plans get ambushed. 7 years is not a guarantee. It is a math problem with variables. Your income, your expenses, your savings rate, your returns, how much you need to live on. All of those move. But the framework is real, and it has worked for thousands of people with regular jobs and no inheritance who just decided to take the numbers seriously before everyone else around them did. You do not have to go all the way to a 75% savings rate. You do not have to retire at 35. But every percentage point you add to your savings rate is years returned to your life. And that math does not care how motivated you felt watching this video. It just keeps running. Subscribe if this channel is giving you the information without the noise. We will keep doing that.